Welcome back, and we are live. What's going on, brother?
Yo, what's going on?
What's going on, Todd? How are you?
Man, I'm great. Feeling groovy.
Back, and we are live doing a interview edition. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to Late Night Green Interview Edition. Can't get it out of my mouth. But, yeah, like we got a pretty good one because we're on a roll here going into the election season. We're at the end of it, but we're going into the elections next week. We'll make some announcements about that, about what we're going to do. But in continuing on, we kind of see this theme going on of candidates that are not the typical candidates that you would typically see running, right?
Not traditional.
Not traditional. And so tonight, we've got another one that falls into the category of non-traditional. But what we have tonight is a Republican candidate, pro-cannabis Republican candidate running for Pennsylvania House. So before we introduce him, I just want to cover something with you. I got to tell you something. When Dallas is playing, when Dallas is playing, and I call,
yes! Here we go!
Just because you're losing doesn't mean that you can't answer the phone.
Ooh, wow.
So
you don't know the rule?
Listen.
Yes! Here we go!
He never picks up the phone. You never pick up the phone when Dallas is losing.
Don't call during my Cowboy games. That's
man,
rude. That's rude, man.
Yeah, come on, man.
Kicking us when we down.
Be a man. Take the call.
Look, I might be a Vikings fan next week.
You need to be a Vikings fan. How you ever became a Cowboys fan is beyond me. And someday we'll tell everybody someday how this fucking thing even happened.
Well, we have more games to go, so we'll talk later.
We'll see. But anyway, let's get down to business tonight. So I want to welcome our guest. His name is Eric Beezer, and he is running for House of Representatives. He's a Republican pro-cannabis candidate running for District 96. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
How you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Good. You know, I don't know if I told Todd or not, but, you know, Eric and I had an opportunity to talk prior to the show, you know, just kind of so we could meet each other. And it was interesting because sometimes you're on these calls and you're trying to figure out where you want to go with the interview and stuff like that. But Eric and I, we kind of hit it off pretty good right out of the gate. And he starts telling me stories. And I finally said, listen, stop telling me stories because we got to save it for the show, right?
There you go.
So welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, not sure where to start here, but
well, tell us where you're at. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions. So tell us just, you know, generally where you're at. You're running for office right now.
I'm 10 plus months in here into 2024, running for State House 96th District, and we got one week left. So this is the home stretch.
This is the home stretch. 1 week from tonight.
Yeah.
And what do your plans include for election evening?
Well, we got to work the polls
all day.
Yep, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Multiple polls. You'll be moving around.
I'm gonna probably stay most of the day at a single poll, but we'll stop and visit a couple. Start off the morning.
Just to get things kicked up and going?
Yeah, say hi to the help.
Everybody gets excited?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we're excited to hear about your candidacy and how you got here. But let's take a step back like we always do in our interviews because we want to know the person a little bit better. So tell us about you. Like, where did you grow up? And tell us a little bit about your family life, you know, basic stuff.
All right. Well, I was born in Florida. We moved back to Pennsylvania when I was 2 or 3 years old. So I spent 40 years in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Went to all the local schools there. When we graduated McCaskey in 99, didn't go far. Penn State Berks, did information science technology program there in 2000, and moved back home to Lancaster and lived there ever since.
So where did you go to college at? Or
Penn State Berks.
Penn State Berks.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And so what was your major there?
Information science technology.
And the plan, the big plan at the time was to do what? What were your goals?
I can't tell you at the time. I think you just felt like it was necessary to go to school, and
right.
It seemed like a pretty good field around the year 2000.
Yeah, as it probably still is.
It's true. A lot of people just, hey, we're destined to go to school. We'll pick a major and
well, it's better than
with it. But he has a very good major.
I mean, it's better if you're undecided. You're probably better off taking something like a course of studies like that than it would be just to do some general studies that may never help you.
Right.
I'm sure your analysis skills, during this time of election is probably coming a bit handy, right?
I'm a systems guy, so I think it was a pretty good fit.
Yeah, right on. So you went to school for that, and so when you got done school, what did you do? Where did you head? What was your first job?
Came back home and joined the labor force like a regular working American.
Right. What did you do?
I think my first job, I might have came back to working at the pizza shops I was working at when I left. Mm-hmm. And then there's a paint production facility that a couple of my friends worked at, so I think that's where I went to next. And then I ended up driving refrigerated truck for a Amish company out of Lancaster.
Okay.
I did that for 15 years before I started the hemp shop.
Nice. 15 years.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's a long time.
That is a long time, but you got to know that community well, I'm assuming.
I did. They're a good group of people to work with.
Yeah, they are. So I know there's something in your past called the Green Bee CBD store.
Still my present, too. That's
Still present?
Okay,
Yep.
still going on.
Tell when did that all happen in your journey?
So 15 years of driving truck left me thinking this probably won't last forever. It's kind of beating my body up. I'd like to do something else. And because I've always followed cannabis, I saw the 2018 Farm Bill coming before it actually passed. So throughout the year of 2018, we started kind of laying the groundwork of what would it be like to open a place like this in Lancaster. Mm-hmm. Lancaster's usually kind of behind the curve a little bit. So if you travel to a different big city, you can kind of see what will come down here next. And you saw CBD everywhere early in 2018. Mm-hmm. Even before the Farm Bill passed, people were selling in places. And so this would probably be a good fit for us.
They were selling them in the farmers markets and all that stuff, even prior, like you said, prior to the bill.
Yep.
And so you saw the writing on the wall, so to speak?
Yeah, and I thought it would be a good thing in a place like Lancaster to kind of introduce people to cannabis that weren't quite – this is like a big retirement place for people in Lancaster. Mm-hmm. So I thought with an older crowd, rather than jump right into medical marijuana, which you're not allowed to do in Pennsylvania from a small business perspective.
Right.
So at least with the hemp and CBD thing, you could educate people, introduce them to, kind of a first step into cannabis.
Right on.
That's a clever move.
So I'm assuming that when you started the store and what it looked like then and what it looks like now is probably a bit different.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so, nobody knew what was going on, really, and sometimes you like to ask, what are you even allowed to do here? But the government didn't really know the answer much for it, so you kind of just jumped in and saw what people were selling, and we were selling it at the store just the same. So we wanted to have as much local stuff as we could have, but in 2018, there weren't a lot of local farms that were making products yet. So we were doing expos in Florida, Colorado, going to see what people had already experienced in other states and trying to bring things back home.
But it didn't start off with like THCA flower or anything like that in the beginning.
It was hemp CBD, and like the rule was it could have that little bit of THC, and you told people it was full spectrum. But aside from that, you kind of tried to avoid the THC. It was a CBD thing in the hemp space.
Mm-hmm. And now it's a bit different because you can sell ounces of what is flower, right?
Now some people have pretty much took that law and expanded it to mean that they can sell cannabis.
Basically, yeah.
So what is the product? What's
yeah.
the product like now as opposed to when you started? Must have grown. What's it like?
So you'd be surprised. The things we still sell the most of are some of the things that we started with, because that repeat business is kind of what keeps you alive. We were much more cautious than some of those hemp shops you see that sell all these things that are very THC adjacent. I always thought the Delta 8 thing that came first would be problemsome in Lancaster, being that it's a pretty conservative area, and I didn't want to be a person made example for selling something that people didn't barely even know what it was.
Right.
So my wife kind of thought it was a bad move. She said, that's what people come in and ask for. That's what other people are selling. Well, we should be doing it too. I said, I can't sleep at night the same, going in knowing that this is the stuff we're selling at the store, and who knows what law enforcement will think about it one day.
Yeah.
It took a while, and I eventually got proven right in that Lancaster was probably the only place I know in the whole country where they decided to start busting hemp shops for selling Delta 8.
Really?
They raided about 46 hemp shops a year and a half ago.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So I was still sleeping good at night, though, thinking I was right.
Pretty smart.
So
Yeah.
so people went down and they're prosecuting people under the notion that that's what? Not legal?
They didn't really prosecute anybody, so
Oh, it's more disruption of the activity.
and I think like the first thing they kind of did was even maybe give a heads up that we don't think, for the government to say they don't know is kind of a strange position to be in, but they were like, we don't think this is legal to sell here. They told some people, take it off your shelves. They told some of the farmers and the people with the production licenses, stop making these kind of products, and I don't think many people listened. So then one day they took it on themselves to go and start raiding shops. And even when they decided to do that, I don't think they arrested anybody. I think they just confiscated. In the news, it says $300,000 worth of products. And kind of left. At the time, they were going after Delta 8. People were already selling THCO, THCP, all kinds of strange cannabinoid concoctions. And they left that go, which I thought was
Really?
kind of strange.
They wanted the flower.
They wanted just Delta 8. If it said Delta 8 on it, they said that they figure that's illegal at this point.
They don't even know what the fuck they're looking for.
Yeah. Just wanted
But listen, when you make a bill like that has loopholes in it, then what do you expect? I
to
mean,
exploit it.
they're going to exploit it no matter how you cut it.
I mean, not to mention, if you guys know cannabis, if I put 3 different things in front of you here, hemp, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, you couldn't pick which one's which to save your life because they're kind of all the same thing.
True. Though we did a little experiment ourselves. We did it I guess it was over the summer we did it, where we had 2 pre-rolls, and one was THCA and the other one was just, straight medical cannabis. And I felt like I could tell the difference.
Yeah, I
Could-
could tell the difference.
You could too?
Yeah. Hey, the real thing had the bang. Another one was kind of leaving you wanting more.
Now, if you were law enforcement pulling somebody over in their car, how would you tell the difference in that
Oh,
situation?
wouldn't tell at all.
Yeah.
See, that's
Yeah.
that's
That's consumption versus, visual.
They look the same. They smell the same. For all intents and purposes, they are the same. It's just you get it into a lab and say, this has a little too much THC. And as far as the difference between medical or recreational.
But as soon as you put flame to it, then it changes.
Sure.
Then you've got a different content level
Yes.
because it carbonizes. So I don't know. It's too gray. It's too gray. I would rather, I think it's pretty easy. I'd rather see a legal market where you can grow your own and you can go to stores that aren't nationally owned, multi-state operators. We don't necessarily need a lot of those. I mean, you're going to have some few, you're going to have a few, but I don't think the makeup of our market should be all MSOs. So, you have a market where you can grow yourself. You can go to a store and make a legal purchase. You don't need to buy that other shit.
Right.
If you make this stuff easy enough to deal with, why are we dealing with derivatives of an original product?
Well, not to mention the 0.3% THC is an arbitrary number. Where did that even come from in the first place?
Yeah, where did it come from?
You might have to ask Thomas Massey on that because he's one of the better Republicans I know.
Stupid.
It's dumb. It's dumb, man. It's dumb.
Yeah.
So, but it creates a problem for law enforcement. You're right. What happens? You get pulled over with a sack of THCA. How are you going to explain your way out of that?
Right.
I want to see you. I want to see.
Look, I got some shit for that.
Yeah, you do. He's working on. I always tell everybody when they come in here, he's working on the point system. He wants
And I
to.
need more points.
He needs more points so he can get a dispensary. So he's trying to do more shit wrong.
So, being a pro-cannabis advocate and coming from Lancaster, one of the, best farm-rich towns. Anyone in the area knows Lancaster, right? You go there, good, wholesome place, great products. So you have farmers and everything. So it would be a great thing for, for your locality.
One of the school districts in my legislative district is Hempfield.
Predestined.
Right?
Predestined. When was that built?
Yeah.
Hempfield ought to have like a tax break for grow houses.
You would think.
Hempfield, you should turn Hempfield into like the town that everyone wants to go to like Hershey, PA,
Right.
for
You
chocolate.
can make it happen. EBs in the house.
Let's do it.
So when did you start this shop then? How long's it been since you started it?
About 6 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, we opened up. So the farm bill was 6 years ago, the day or so right now. So we were planning for it, and we got our lease maybe August 6 years ago, and then right the first week of January of 2019, we opened our doors.
Okay. And then COVID came.
We got a whole COVID was 2020, so we had a whole year in before COVID started.
And COVID, I mean, did they deem you essential?
No,
Not essential?
no.
Wow. We have to change that.
Yeah.
It's very essential.
Well, let's get back to the point where do we really need to pick which businesses are essential or not in the first place?
That's ridiculous to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah. Well, listen, when you work off of misinformation, you make bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happened. A lot of bad decisions on a lot of bad information. And a lot of people jumping the gun, and a lot of people who had a lot of control. People who wanted to exercise their control. So, and you see where it got us, because I think our economy is still in the process of digging out from that nonsense. So, so is this a family business? Your wife's involved in it?
I mean, she helps me.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll call it a family business.
You gotcha. And so, at what point during this process of owning the store did you say, hey, there's a viable route here for me to consider getting into politics?
Okay, so let's say about a year and a half ago, my wife was looking at me saying, why are you still doing this? You're really not making any money anymore, and you're just coming in here and spending your time servicing your regular customers.
Right.
At some point, don't you think it's time to do something else? And I always thought waiting around at some point, Pennsylvania laws would change and local business would have an opportunity to participate in what's one of our biggest new industries. Mm-hmm. So I kind of always was playing this wait and see approach as to what comes next with it. And I think at some point I said, well, maybe I might have to do something to make that happen. So August of last year, sitting in my store, I started calling legislators on the phone to move a particular bill. So you get to meet a lot of people when you're in the cannabis industry, and a lot of the people I knew were medical marijuana patients in PA, and their biggest gripe was they're not allowed to home grow a couple plants. So in August, somebody dropped a bill that would have allowed medical patients to grow 6 plants, and I just started calling.
This year?
This was last
year.
Yeah.
So they dropped a bill that would allow med patients only to possess 6 plants.
Yep. So I got on the phone and started calling senators saying, hey, there's a bill. Why aren't you supporting it? And this was just, no one ever told me what to do. But I figured the way bills work is they get co-sponsors once they first get introduced. Mm-hmm. And in the Senate, you need 26 people to vote yes on something. So I said, well, as many co-sponsors as I can get on there.
Was it a Senate bill or was it a House bill?
It's a Senate bill.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of trended towards the Senate because it's 50 people rather than 203 people in the House.
True.
And they're also like a little bit higher level of seriousness with things, it seems. Sometimes in the House, it's kind of a joke what they're working on there, it seems at times. So just a numbers game of saying, hey, if we can get it through the Senate, it'll go to the House. And with a Democrat majority, you figure most of these things should have a chance.
So what'd you do, start calling their offices?
Just calling offices, yeah, saying, hey, where are you at on this bill? Here's what the bill is.
So you got through, got callbacks, all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
And what was the reception?
I'd say it was kind of warm with some people on that. Mm-hmm. Half the people, it's kind of hard to get through to talk to who you need to talk to. You know, there's a guard that goes on. You get a secretary on the phone. They have a legislative assistant. They have
the good old gatekeeper.
It's pretty hard to get your hands on an actual legislator. You really have a lot of people, and they're not really the ones that make the sausage. You know, it's their legislative staff are the ones that work on the bills.
Right.
They go to the campaigns.
But that's not who you want to talk to. You want to talk to the senator.
I want to talk to the person that's doing their work, you know. Okay. So chief of staff kind of runs their show, so you want like a legislative director. Okay. There's a good person to get on the phone. But not every office even uses the same title. So I kind of would usually just call in and start talking, because I learned if you give up too much information ahead of time, a lot of the places are like, you should call your own. The way this works is you call your own person on this.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, but you guys do Pennsylvania bills all the same, so I can call my own person until I'm blue in the face. Right. If we can't get half of you to agree on this, it's all for naught.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I see a lot of bipartisan with this cannabis move. So I think you can make a big move in that area. So being a Republican, and I think that's where might be a small hold up there, but I see it's a lot of bipartisan on this issue. How do you see yourself factoring that and getting that to move forward?
Well, it would be nice to have a champion for the people in Harrisburg on this issue because we don't really have one right now. I think from the Republican aspect, I have good selling points in that we don't like taxes. We don't like crime. We like making money with businesses. So having it be illegal costs taxpayers a lot of money to enforce the law. It makes it a crime. So, of course, it makes crime numbers go up. And we don't allow for any local businesses to participate in an industry that exists. No one ever acted like because of prohibition, people weren't smoking weed. I don't even know how many new people are smoking weed now that it's legal. It's probably a lot of people that were well familiar with it before the laws ever changed.
That's probably the bigger, because I think some of the numbers with some of the younger folks are even down, specifically when there's legal options in the city that they live in.
It does sound like legalization has led to less youth usage in some states.
Well, sometimes people just want what they can't have, and if they can have it, they don't necessarily then want it. So
if mom and dad are at home getting fried, it's not nearly as cool, too. When you're a kid.
Yeah, it's not as much as a big deal.
It's not as unique.
Yeah.
So you decided that you were going to do some advocacy.
Yep.
You made some calls, and you got somewhat of a warm reception. Did that wet your whistle to saying, hey, I made an impact here. Perhaps if I do more, I can make more of an impact?
Well, that was the first bill. So I followed that bill to the committee that it was landed in. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to the person on the staff who I needed to talk to there, it was a very dishonest conversation on their end where they weren't even responding to the things I was asking. Their thing as to why they couldn't support home grow was because if we allow people to legally home grow in Pennsylvania, then those same people who are begging for permission, let's not act like people aren't illegally growing it in the first place. The group of people who are begging to do it legally will then turn around and put fentanyl in it and distribute it to people. And I'm like, that's the most dishonest answer I think you could come up with.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to happen.
No.
It's not really a thing in the first place. But if somebody was going to try to give somebody fentanyl on weed, they're going to do it illegally. The guys sitting at home with a medical card begging for permission are not the same people that are going to put fentanyl in weed and start distributing it afterwards.
It's true.
So that bill kind of taught me the ropes on how the things worked. And then now that I know who
And what did you do with that one? Make a bunch of calls?
That particular bill with the home grow,
Yeah.
I kind of followed it to a dead end. So it's in a committee. I'm talking to the person I need to talk to, and they're not responsive. They're basically saying it's not going to happen here. So it's like kind of frustrating. But now that I know what I'm doing, I'm thinking, okay, who was good that I talked to? Who's going to help the cause here? And it was actually a Republican's office, Senator Bartolotta, who she had introduced a bill 2 years prior to fix the Pennsylvania situation with DUIs. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pennsylvania being a zero-tolerance state.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I don't agree with it. So what was the legislation about?
Her bill would require proof of impairment. So rather than right now the situation we have, if you get a legal medical card and you use your medicine on the weekend and then you put it down all week while you drive to work, you're a driving felony every day.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And so because she's the one fighting on behalf of it, she hears all the horror stories. And you can tell it's like kind of really eating at her that this is a thing she wants to fix. And she was actually working to get it done. So her office was great, and she's the lead sponsor.
Was that
on the
this
bill.
year or last year?
This was last year. So I started in August. Let's say this was maybe like September last year when I started calling about Senate Bill 363 would require proof of impairment. And we actually got that one, I think, through Senator Langerholt's Transportation Committee, which is quite a feat because the Pennsylvania legislature in the past 2 years hasn't passed even 10% of bills compared to some of our neighboring states. So I think a place like Maryland, they don't even have a full-time legislature. They do a part-time thing.
And they got more shit.
They knock out like 800 bills. Pennsylvania, full-time legislature, I think they passed 73 bills last year. We also pay our state lawmakers twice what Marylanders pay their state legislators. So we're getting 10% of the work at twice the cost. It's government at work there.
A lot to clean up here. you spoke about, taxes. Who doesn't want lower taxes? How do you think that the tax situation will happen if they legalize marijuana, recreational for adult use? You think the taxes will be high? Or
I've seen some of the ideas floated by some of the people that talk like they want to get something done with it. Shapiro's plan seemed like it included a pretty high tax and revenue for the state. Some of these guys talk about selling it through a state store model, which I wholly disagree with that idea. Yeah. I don't even really like our state selling alcohol, but you can only fight so many battles at one time. But I think it's one thing I align with other Republicans on, and that I could even see us putting our state alcohol system into a more free market thing for businesses.
Yeah.
Listen,
Pennsylvania has no business selling products of any sort to any consumer whatsoever, no matter what it is. That's my opinion. We don't need to be in the business of selling products. And we're like one of what? A handful of states that have some sort of organized alcohol system, state store system.
Pennsylvania State Liquor Control Board, I mean, it's one of the biggest alcohol businesses in the whole country because we're a big state and they sell all the booze.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
It's also a hard drug. It's not a soft drug like marijuana. It's one of the hardest drugs, alcohol. So, as
bullshit.
It's bullshit.
It is. And I don't really consume alcohol myself, so it rubs me the wrong way that the state uses taxpayer money to market alcohol consumption.
Yeah, well, they're in business to make money, so you would imagine they could have marketed it as well. I want to go back to this this bill that you worked on prior to getting in politics for this DUI nonsense. Where did it go?
That bill, as far as I know, it last went through Transportation Committee and got laid on the table and wherever it landed next in the Senate. So stuck in purgatory somewhere like many bills.
And all those bills die at the end of this session.
We're days away, yeah.
So it's done.
I think they have a little bit of work to do after the election, but maybe that's the time to try something like this. I mean, bet on it.
The two things that I've heard that need to get addressed immediately is home grow in relation to whatever bill does move forward. But maybe even more important than that is you've got people that are on medicine right now that are driving and basically committing felonies every time they get in the car. And that is ridiculous.
So you guys remember our Senator John Fetterman's campaign to legalize weed?
Briefly.
Yeah. I think I remember his wife touting that she's a consumer here in Pennsylvania. And I often used to see her post pictures of her driving around in her car.
Ah.
So I get for people like that, it doesn't matter because they don't get in trouble when they break the law.
That's right.
But put two and two together, we have a representative at Fest as much that he knows the law and that he's a consumer and he drives as a criminal. State Rep Chris Rabb.
So, which is an interesting segue because, this whole thing, like when we introduced you, we kind of said, hey, you're an anomaly. You're a pro-cannabis Republican. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The nitty-gritty is that a lot of Republicans are pro-cannabis, but for some reason, they can't talk about it. They can't come on the record. And even when Emily came on to talk about the bill that she co-wrote, I wasn't able to get her co-author to come on. I don't think they want to necessarily, even when they do favor cannabis in any way whatsoever, it seems to me like they still don't want to be on camera or they don't want that video clip of them talking about it. And so I guess my question to you is what's your thoughts on that? Why? I mean, you're in the Republican Party now, which you didn't start off as. You started off as a Democrat, if I did my homework correctly. Is that right?
I've been both.
You've been both?
Yeah.
Back and forth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you think the hubbub's about? Why is everybody so, because Emily came on here and she was super honest and she goes, listen, I talk to Republicans all the time that are for this. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go on the record. So why?
How do we get Republicans to come out the closet?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's this thing about it being a law and order thing, and so long as it's illegal, then they're keeping order.
To me, it seems to be, it goes against their conservative.
But it's money.
Platform,
but they're for
right?
money.
It's even though now I don't think it's not conservative. It's kind of common now, right? smoking weed and everything. So it's not forbidden like it used to be. But I think, that conservative platform makes them, want to stick with it.
Well, I think most people reflexively, and it's like a product of prohibition for people, they look at it like it's bad, And when I talk with Republicans, the conversation often centers around, I want to legalize, but weed is bad. And I usually return serve to them and say, even if you think weed is bad, how do you feel about prohibition? How do you feel about our history with alcohol prohibition? It didn't take us a decade to go from one constitutional amendment to the next, from prohibiting alcohol and saying that does not work very well, strip that one from the books. So why 80 years later is weed still hanging around in this status where it's still federally illegal? Even the hemp thing comes in conflict with a lot of federal law. The laws are a mess in this country when it comes to cannabis. As far as why Republicans still to this day kind of want to keep it under wraps like that, I think it has a lot to do with being the party of law and order. And, if Republicans, while it's illegal, support its use, you're undermining law enforcement to some degree. And I think it's kind of almost unfair for cops because their job is to enforce the law, and these are the people that write the laws.
That's right.
So then people get mad at cops, and it's like,
well, their hands are tied.
They're doing their job.
They're doing their job. And it's not necessarily what we all want or expect from that job, but it has to get defined. It has to get legislated, and it has to get written, right? It has to get put. So now we have all these bills, and people did a lot of work. And, I know that when a bill dies out and the session's over and it starts, it does die, but there's pieces of it that get resurrected, quite quickly, or things that had some traction before. The thing that Todd said here is like, what do we do to get Republicans to kind of come out of the closet, as you indicated? It seems to me that people like you who are running and you're open and you're willing to come on the show and talk about it, you're running for office, you're Republican, you're pro-cannabis, but you don't have a problem talking about it. Gabriella came in, she's pro-cannabis, she's a candidate, she's not in yet. She has no problem talking about it. So perhaps in due time, as a newer wave of Republicans come in, perhaps they'll have a different thought process as to how they want to address it openly.
It's a generational thing for sure. I mean, younger people, you will find them supporting it, where I don't know it's necessarily just Republicans that are against it. There's plenty of older Democrats that you could lump in the exact same box.
So it's more of an old fucking thing, yeah. Right? People are old, and the people who are old. See, in the studio here, all of the propaganda, this is what the old people remember. This is what they saw. This is what got beaten into their heads for how many years?
Plenty of them smoked pot anyways.
And they did anyways.
Yes,
but plenty of them
behind closed doors
left multiple generations of paranoia about something that they didn't even understand. And I think in many ways we're still dealing with that. That's my thought. What were you going to say?
I said, I think in Pennsylvania specifically, because our state sells so much alcohol and they view it as some type of a competition thing, that the incentive structure is kind of rotten. So I don't know if there's a coincidence that because Pennsylvania has the alcohol sales system that we have, and we're the last state in the Northeast that hasn't gone recreational, that I think that there's something there.
Interesting. All right, well, we're gonna do this. We're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna let you tell some of these stories that we were talking about real quick, and then I want to know more about your platform and let you pitch everybody.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna run the commercial, and we will be back in a couple of minutes.
So many dispensaries have resorted to a bland, impersonal shopping experience, where you often don't even get to see a sample of the cannabis you're planning on purchasing before you buy it. If you're looking for that extra personal touch, come check out High Roller Dispensary in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Our staff are avid cannabis connoisseurs who are sure to help you find the strains that fit you best. Whether you're looking for premium flower, edibles, concentrates, or tinctures, we have you covered with over 100 different strains to choose from, all of which are able to be seen, smelled, and thoroughly examined in our elegant showroom. If you're in a rush, we offer a seamless online ordering system that allows for in-depth exploration of all that we have to offer. So whether you're a novice or a seasoned stoner, be sure to stop by High Roller Dispensary and we'll make sure you're floating on cloud 9 by the time you leave.
I'm Rob Cantrell and you're watching Cough Country TV. Right here, right now. This is it. You're watching it. Cough Country. You're in this country, cough it up. Cough it up for Cough Country TV. Right here, right now, on the internet and beyond. Media, television, pizza, weed, legalized.
Right around here, 15 inches, maybe if you're younger, you go up to 19 inches, you know? Yeah, you know, you already went the bigger.
Sometimes a CIO might make commitments to a CEO that they just can't fulfill. And it's very hard to succeed in those environments. You really want to be able to set the expectation right up front.
How would you feel with no sex, no weed for a month or two? I'm going to be really angry.
I feel sorry for Jake.
Yeah, Jake's going to get fucked up.
Wow, this is Phil. Yeah, for this is all you. This is the Cough Country OG pink hoodie.
No, our motto is, when they go low, we get high.
Oh, shit. I love that commercial with Michelle Obama. I don't care if it's like from 2016. That shit is funny.
That's a great ad.
When they go low, we get high.
That's it.
Baby. All right. So we're back, and we're back with Eric Beezer again. If you guys haven't noticed, he is our Republican Pro-Cannabis House of Representatives candidate for Pennsylvania, District 96, and he is here tonight talking to us about his candidacy. And we were in the middle of a story about how he got involved, and he told us about two bills that he was doing advocacy work for prior to making this decision. But then there's one more that you worked on, and then I'm interested in how that then translated into your actual candidacy.
So the first bill with home grow wasn't really a me thing because I'm personally not that interested in growing. The second one was, I thought, something that just affected all people. So if you can fix a law that helps everybody out, that's a good thing. But after really learning the ropes with those two bills, I started asking myself the question, whatever happened to decrim in Pennsylvania? It's always been the way it moves in any state, medical, decrim, rec. And they keep talking about how they're going to go rec. Why isn't anyone ever talking about decriminalizing in the first place?
All right.
So, on all the players that I've learned now, I go look back and say, hey, y'all had a decrim bill in previous session. Why did nobody ever reintroduce that? So that was a Senator Sharif bill. Sharif Street had a bill that he introduced with Senator Bartolotta, the one I had been working with already.
Right.
And I called Senator Sharif Street's office and said, whatever happened that you guys introduced that at the beginning of last session, no one picked it up this go-round. What happened? And it was an odd response. The guy I was talking to was like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. We should get right on that. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, what's the holdup here? Get me a co-sponsorship memorandum out there.
You were talking to one of his staff members.
Just talking to one of his staff
Gotcha.
members. Yeah, I think Dustin.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So turns out that I learned after the fact why they seemed so interested at the time might have coincided with the senator's son getting arrested for marijuana. Now, it didn't really make the news much, as you can assume, but I don't wonder if there was some...
I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't wonder if there was some calculus there. If they're going to make sure he doesn't get in trouble, maybe he better start making good on his word about helping everybody else in the state out. So that one, because I already knew everybody I was talking to, I got like 15 co-sponsors on that thing before they even dropped the
So did he get off the hook for that?
I don't know. I don't think he's in jail right now. I think he had 3 different charges, I think, over the course of last year. Not to bring people's families into it, but I mean, when you're in politics and those things happen,
And he's a senator, right?
He's a senator. Yeah.
And we want Senator Street on here as well to come tell us about some of these bills and what he's going to do moving forward.
So with the decrim one, it was kind of easy. They had a bill before. There was maybe 12 co-sponsors in previous session. So obviously I'm going to them first saying, we're going to reintroduce the bill. Are you still on it? And I think 10 out of 12 of them are like, absolutely, sign me right up. 2 of the original 12 had some very odd reasons for not wanting to jump right back onto it. But there was another half dozen or so that were pretty easy to work on. Once I got around 15, number 16 and number 17 started to be like pulling teeth a little bit more.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I told you before, I would just call and start talking because most legislative offices want to deal with people who live in their district. So sometimes that's part of how they vet you out when you call is, who are you and where are you calling from? But if you just start talking to them on the thing,
they don't have time to screen you.
They don't get to that until they get to the part where you're stumping them and they're like, where are you calling from again?
So what I'm learning here is if Eric doesn't get this candidacy, he's probably going to be a pretty good salesperson working the phones. You know how to get through to people, man. That's cold calling 101.
Got connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
so,
shit.
You know, so what do you think yourself is the primary reason that the decriminalization part hasn't gotten through yet?
Honestly, I don't wonder if maybe some of these people aren't that good at their jobs.
But it never went to vote, did it?
No. And honestly, I started getting into the politics thing at the tail end of about 17 sponsors on that one. So what really sparked my candidacy probably was one of these, where are you calling from? Shouldn't you call your own senator, state rep?
You got that message a lot.
Yeah. And then they'd ask me who they were, and I told them who they were, and most people on the other end of the phone were like, man, that sucks.
They sucks because you had a reputation of what?
My senator and my state rep, they already knew they wouldn't be great ones to call to get to do anything.
Because they're not for any of this.
They don't seem to be for too much of
anything.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you their great accomplishments.
Well, if I read correctly, the person that had the seat prior to this race that you're in right now was there for over 30 years.
He was there 34 years at this point.
34, baby.
The longest tenured member of the Harrisburg Swamp.
Too long.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I don't like. There's got to be some sort of term limit.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that I started running on.
Guys like that just make a fucking career out of it. That's what their job is. Yep. And there's other people who want to come in, get something done, and get out, and get back to their whatever the fuck they're doing.
So when I called his office, I'm now accusing him for being on the hook for the 650,000 possession arrests that occurred in the 34 years of him being in office. Mm-hmm. And the guy I had on the phone in that conversation, turns out he said that his job was the research, something along the lines of he was the research guy in the office. And he's kind of calling me a liar with my stats. And I'm like, well, what numbers do you have? You can go back and see that the numbers are posted at least back to 2008 in the Philly Inquirer, 21,000, 20,000 on any given year. So times 34, 650 is a pretty round number. And he challenged me on that and asked me, the research analyst, he wants me to now do the work and send him an email with information in it. And I'm like, well, what is your job? I thought I'd pay you to do this.
And don't they have a whole staff to do this shit?
Yeah. So that phone call was.
So what were you like? What did you think? Like these guys thought you were a pain in the ass, or did they think that you were being helpful? Like what was their whole perception of you during this process?
I got a lot of credit from a lot of people that I talked to that they were kind of thanking me for doing what I'm doing. They said, "You're good at this. This is what you should be doing."
So it set the stage for what's happening right now.
It did. And especially once now I'm calling my own representative and they're telling me to basically pound sand.
Right.
But also my staff isn't doing their job. And I'm like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah, not a lot.
So I tell this story to everybody I encounter for the next month.
Typical politician bullshit.
Yep.
Get nothing done.
Yeah, it's a major proponent of the movement, the decriminalization part of it. So hopefully that it gets some steam and move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now here you are. You've worked on these grassroots efforts and you've made some great contacts. And then what happens? This guy, does he make this announcement that he's not running? or did you decide that you were going to primary him, or how did it work?
So I just tell these stories to everybody that comes in my store and everybody I'm talking to, and it always ends with, these are people that live in my district telling me you should run. And I'm like, I guess you hear that 24 times, and it's like, well, I guess maybe I should run then.
Right. And that's what you did.
And that's what I ended up doing.
Did you know at the time you're running that this guy was retiring?
No.
So you didn't.
So in Pennsylvania to get
Is
on
he
the
a Democrat?
He's a Democrat.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, in order to get on the ballot, they give you 3 weeks to collect 300 signatures from people that live in your district that are registered for the party that you want to run in. So Republicans in my part. So because I'm doing it all on my own and don't have any help, it's not that easy in the dead of winter in Pennsylvania when it gets dark at 5 o'clock and people don't really want to answer their door in the first place. And I'm banging out there with a clipboard in hand saying, will you sign this petition so I can get on the ballot? And I don't know, if somebody came to your door 5 o'clock at dinner time, you came home from work, how much time do you really want to give them at January to hold the door wide open to you to say, what are you talking about here? Most people don't understand that process. That's how you get on the ballot in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So how did that process go? Did you? I think I remember reading that you got the signatures, but they still were giving you a hard time.
So because I'm doing it all on my own and learning as I go, it went slow. And there was maybe 8 days left, and I'm thinking the math isn't going to work here with how many signatures I have. Just kind of calling my friends, getting them to switch their party registration to Republican, sign my thing. I'm barely hitting 50 signatures. I need 300. I have 8 days left. Well, fortunately, I ran into some other local Republicans who were interested in having a candidate, and they said, hey, we'll help you get some signatures, help you learn the ropes here a little bit more. And it all wound up being February 13th is the due date when you have to hand them in. And people will warn you before you do this. Someone will try to challenge them for mistakes. It's part of the process. If you need 300, try to get 600. So if you have people that actually aren't registered or they use the wrong address or whatever reason they'll try to discredit your signatures for,
right,
you want a big buffer.
Sure.
So I went to bed Monday the night before they were due with 273. So I needed 27 just to be able to hand them in on the day they were due. Mm-hmm. Well, as luck would have it, we got a storm that night where it was to snow enough where they canceled school already the next day. So it was like someone was watching over for me, and they put everybody stuck at home the next morning. And I woke up and got 50 signatures in the snow on the day they were due in the morning.
Because people were stuck at home.
Because everybody's stuck at home.
Fantastic.
Wow.
And all I was doing at that point, instead of looking through paperwork and finding an address and where a Republican lives, I would go around. If you already shoveled your driveway and you have an American flag out front, I'm thinking you're probably a Republican.
Yep.
He's right.
And it worked. I ended up with 320. My dad was helping me pretty good. One of my friends came and picked him up and drove him out around East Petersburg, and he got 20 signatures for me. And at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I was like, I got to go to Harrisburg with what I have here. Because if I don't get there by 5 o'clock, this is all for naught.
And so did I read that you had an issue even when your signatures were in, or no?
Yeah, so the scumbag I was running against, he challenged me in court with his lawyer to try to sue you off the ballot, saying, I don't believe your signatures are valid. Let's take you in front of let's waste more taxpayer money in front of a judge and throw my own constituent signatures in the trash so that I'm the only person on the ballot. I mean, it's a really shitty move to do.
Huh.
You're supposed to only be able to challenge your own party's candidates. So they keep somebody registered in the party to use as a dummy name so that when my opponent wants to challenge me,
right,
he uses the poor schmuck that just signs the paper at the bottom and says, oh, you have a Republican. Why would 83-year-old Alan Hawkins want to challenge my 323 signatures?
So what ended up happening with the court?
So you get once you hand them in, you have a week that lets them look over them when they can say we want to challenge them. And I celebrated a little too early because Tuesday I had till 5 p.m. and then I would be good. At 2 o'clock, I'm starting to celebrate with some friends, and my wife calls me at 2:30 and says, you're not going to like this. A lawyer just stopped by and dropped some papers on here. They're challenging your petitions. So that left me, so that's Tuesday, a week after they were due. That left me a week to try to figure out something to do about it. But the first batch of papers he dropped off, they didn't have a court date or anything on it. So it's 50 pages of nonsense, lawyer speak, And at the very end of it, they'd make sure to include, if you lose this, you're on the hook to pay the lawyer's fees for it.
No shit.
Which, come to find, isn't actually even true. It's just a scare tactic to try to keep you from even doing anything about it.
Wow.
Because it's kind of a special lawyer you have to find that helps you to fight petition challenges. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't even know how I find a lawyer for this. So he came to my store 2 days later and served me the actual court paperwork that says, your court date is Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. in Harrisburg. You and I have to go to meet Lancaster Board of Elections because the judge knows our lawsuit's frivolous and he don't want to deal with this. So you guys hash it out at the local Board of Elections. And if you can't come to an agreement on how many signatures you have, then you'll get to see the judge. Well, Friday at noon, I met the guy at the Board of Elections and we kicked his ass and walked out of there with exactly 300 signatures. They withdrew their challenge and I was on the ballot officially.
And what did you have to actually do to make that happen?
So when the guy came to my wife to hand the papers, she's the nicest person you ever meet. So she was pleased and thank you when he handed her this lawsuit. He's like, wow, she must be really nice. Maybe he is too. Well, when he came into my store with this yellow manila folder and I realized who he was, I was like, you piece of shit. How do you sleep at night? Like, one of the guys that signed my thing is a 93-year-old veteran. So
yeah, go to his house and tell him.
Tell him that you want to tell him that his own rep
and
doesn't even want someone on the ballot for your signature.
And a life's worth of service doesn't mean shit.
No, not to these clowns.
You go tell him.
And I mean, I am accosting this poor old man who was the guy's lawyer. I felt bad. The next 2 nights I told my wife both times, I felt really bad the way I talked to that guy, but he deserved it.
Listen, well, you're getting involved in a sloppy-ass game, so you're going to get dirty.
These people are crooked as all hell.
They're crooked, and you're going to get dirty. Your hands are going to get dirty.
So I was really giving him the business, and he's trying to back out of my store saying, geez, I got to get out of here. This guy is really making me feel like the piece of shit that I am. And turns out because I did that to him, when he ended up having to see me in the Board of Elections, he couldn't look me in the eye. He's whimpering around the place like this, looking at the corner.
So when did that decision go down in that room? What was the date of that?
Friday noon. So if the petitions are due on the 13th, 20th, that would have been like February 25th, let's say.
And so since that point in time, you've been executing your campaign?
That was the official launch. When I come out there and got to tell my friends that work with me, we are on the ballot now.
That was the launch
it's
party.
Official.
That was your coming down the elevator moment?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd like to see you come down a fucking elevator sometime.
Man, I'll take the steps.
Yep. That's super interesting. So let me ask you this: do you know who Stella Sexton is?
Yes, I do.
And she is she's
I saw her today.
So she's the vice chair of the Democratic Committee.
She is.
So she's in the Lancaster Online, quoted in this article saying, quote, "It's unfortunate that Mr. Beezer is confused on whether he's a Democrat or a Republican," said Stella Sexton. What was that all about?
I guess it had to do with my previous registration as being a Democrat and then running as a Republican.
And so she just decided to take a shot over the bow?
Yeah. Well, the local news has this direct pipeline to the Democrat Party. So whatever they want printed, beck and call. Then when it comes time to ask a Republican for a quote, they'll send you a text or give you a phone call. Do you want to make comment? I have a deadline approaching. You could pick it up 5 minutes later. You missed the deadline. So now they can print in their story.
He refused to answer.
Yeah, exactly. So you see a lot of that locally from Republicans.
That's how they
dumb bitch.
Wow. Well, this is the dirty game. You're getting the inside, guys, on the dirty game of politics here.
Yeah,
so how do you see that? So you know, Democrat, Republican, do you see that as a benefit, or does that hurt you within each party? You know, because they might not, say, well,
both.
Where is he at?
Both, probably, right? So in my district, there's 6,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. So obviously I need Democrats to vote for me if I'm going to win. So I need a crossover issue. And then when she starts feeding LMP that in the past I donated $420 to John Fetterman's campaign, LMP prints that in a way to try to make Republicans not trust me.
That's exactly what they did.
Which is pretty. He said as much, which is pretty stupid because I'm running uncontested in a primary. Republicans don't read the local paper because they know it's garbage. And even if they did, I didn't have an opponent.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it's a waste of time. But, like, yeah, you're right.
It's actually helping me out because Democrats are reading that thinking, hey, this guy's kind of cool.
Yeah. So the whole time it's been uncontested, this whole race you're in?
As a Republican in the primary, I was uncontested.
Okay, and you're running against who now?
So I always was running against Mike Sturla. And on August 12th of this year, they did the old Kamala Biden swap on me. And he withdrew from the race mysteriously. And within 48 hours, they put Nikki Rivera on the ballot.
So what's this? Is this the year of that you don't have to primary anymore? You just get fucking anointed a slot?
There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of game playing within each party to make sure the right person that they want to get there gets there.
I mean, you do remember saving democracy, as they say, right?
Right.
And yeah. I think it's a far cry from that. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. Okay, so tell us what's been going on in the campaign, and then I have a tweet that I want to put up on the screen for you to respond to because it kind of hits home.
Okay. Well, I got a little bit more juice on how the whole thing worked out from that beginning part.
Well, can give it to us.
So being that I'm a one-man show with no backing, and I know I'm not going to be able to fundraise a lot of money, I'm thinking the first thing I need to do is the opposition research all on my own here of this guy. So I'm just reading through his family's Facebook post, and I see his wife advertising that when they're building their new home, that it comes with the advantage of not having to pay any property taxes for the first 5 years. And I'm thinking, man, that's kind of weird. This guy for 34 years, he made his career on think of the children and fair funding the local schools. And in the meantime, you got $1 million house from being a politician, and you're the only man in the whole city not paying property taxes on it. So I thought that was a good juicy one to begin with. And then from there, I had some people telling me that he's known for not living in Lancaster very often. He got a vacation home down in Maryland at the Bay where he spends most of his time. So I figured, well, let's parlay those two things together where you're not paying local property taxes and then you're not representing us very well because you don't even barely live here anymore. Could you even make state residency requirements at this point if there was anyone there to check on you?
Right.
Yeah. So at the time, I thought that's a good 1-2 punch. 34-year incumbent, it's a perfect time for people to say, that's too long. Every Democrat I talked to, it was a great way in the door of them agreeing 34 years is too long.
That's a big-ass number that nobody wants to hear with a politician. That means shit ain't getting done.
Not trying to do anything.
He was getting it done for himself, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. And listen, we had Paul Freeland here a week ago or whatever it was. When he ran against someone that was sitting in a seat for a very, very long time. And so, sometimes those guys are hard to unseat because they just kind of become the fabric of
fixture.
Yeah, they're like the fixture.
Yeah, and it's good to use movement and tenacity that you guys have. It's going to move the game forward, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, they call it the incumbent advantage, right? Because they got the media on their side, because the media wants access to the politician, and they have their entire network they've built over 34 years on every side of the thing, in the government, in the local community, with the people that they choose to help and work with.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's super interesting. So, I want to hear about how the campaign's going real quick, but I want to get your thoughts on a tweet that President Donald Trump put out. I don't know, about 5-6 hours ago, probably 7 hours ago. You guys, if you could put this this tweet up. So Donald Trump writes, and this was pulled from, I don't know, it would be early this afternoon. Wow, York County, Pennsylvania received thousands of potentially fraudulent voter registration forms and mail-in ballot applications from a third-party group. This is on top of Lancaster County being caught with 2,600 fake ballots and forms, all written by the same person. Really bad stuff. What is going on in Pennsylvania? Law enforcement must do their job immediately. Wow. What is that all about? So tell us what's going on. I mean, this is ground zero for you.
So you guys live in Pennsylvania, we're the swing state.
Yeah.
The whole world's looking to see who we will pick for the president.
That's correct.
There was only 40,000 votes difference in 2016.
So how does this happen? What's going on with this?
So my understanding of this thing is the local board of elections, as they were starting to process their voter registrations, they're not ballots. So I think the president was a little bit off on what he called those as ballots. So people will go around in the months leading up to an election, and they get paid to go in the community and try to register new voters. So in Pennsylvania, you can get registered a couple ways. You want to do it yourself, you go online, you go to the board of elections, you go to renew your driver's license now in Pennsylvania. We have automatic voter registration now for about a year. And the third way would be people paid activists to go out into the streets with a clipboard
and knock on doors,
pestering people to say, hey, you should register to vote. So they noticed some kind of inconsistencies on the 13th hour as they were being handed in. That, man, we got a pile of 2,500 of them here. It looks like a lot of them have the same signatures on them, I think is one telltale sign that they said. So Lancaster, one more time, it's like the center of the universe. Sunday, Trump's there. Wednesday, RFK's there. In the middle of Elon coming on Saturday, the national news is the fraudulent voter registrations.
Did you get to meet all those guys?
We went to all the events.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I didn't go inside the Trump one. I was using that more. Trump brought me 5,000 or 6,000 Republicans all waiting in line for all day. So me and my wife spent the day front to back talking to everybody.
That's great.
I never had intention of going inside to that one.
Did you wanted to stay out of range, didn't you?
If I'm going to be honest, I actually put myself right into it because knowing that we weren't going in there, I caught wind at the local Democrat Party, old Stella Sexton over there. They were planning a big counter protest at the center square for when Trump's cavalcade pulled up.
They were going to show him off.
They wanted Trump to see them. Now, what they thought was going to happen when Trump saw them, I don't know.
He don't give a fuck.
You got 40 lunatics screaming with their Harris signs there. Did you think Trump was going to pack it in and run away or something like that? It was strange, but that's kind of where they're at, you know.
Wow.
You have to hate Trump with all your might. That's your duty as a Democrat at this point.
Well, listen, man, I think if you know, and you heard me say this before, if you're voting against somebody and you're not voting for somebody but you're voting against somebody, you're fucking stupid. I mean, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your vote. Figure out how a candidate we realize that no candidate's going to be perfect, that no candidate's going to perfectly align with the things that you want in life. I mean, shit, add cannabis to it. Just add one thing like cannabis to it, and we've already separated all these different people. So, listen, if you're voting against somebody and not for somebody, you're stupid. Don't fucking do that. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So tell us real quick, how is the you know, the last few weeks been? Obviously, there's a lot of activity there. Do you see this 3,600, 2,600? Is this what someone trying to get paid for doing work they didn't do, or is this more of some bigger plan to sabotage the election? I don't know.
So, as my year would have it, they said that they think the thing started in Lancaster on August 15th. So knowing that, I went back through my text to see when I was telling everybody a story about me meeting an odd character that was out on the streets getting voter registrations. Mm-hmm. I sent the text out to my friends on August 14th. So the guy just looked out of place. He was in my parking lot kind of screaming at somebody in a van. And I'm keeping an eye on him because we don't get a lot of that in my store parking lot. And the van left, and he seemed to walk off. So I went to the corner store to go grab a smoke. And I walked past him, and I'm just like kind of looking him in the eyes as he went past. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm getting voter registrations. What are you doing?" So I'm going to get a smoke at the corner store. He said, "Well, are you registered to vote?" I said, "I'm running for office. I surely hope so." I was like, "Are you going back to where I saw you at? I would like to talk to you for a minute." So he said, "Yeah, I'm going there to eat my lunch that I just got at the corner store." So I get a smoke. I go back. He's sitting in the parking lot eating his lunch. So I chop it up and talk to him for a while. He said that the place was hiring convicted felons, and he happened to be one. He couldn't get any other work, so he was happy to have the job. But no one looked over his shoulder all day, so it didn't matter if he sat there eating lunch and didn't turn in any voter registrations. He was getting paid anyways. Yeah, kind of a coincidence of a thing to meet. So at the time, my son's looking for a job. And I'm thinking, well, if they're paying people $23 an hour and you're not accountable for what you do, I ought to have him, let him get a job with them, and then he can go and do my work out there in the field.
Right.
So I talked to that guy for a while, and I end up getting all his information and who he works for, which nobody else would do. Who would see that guy with voter registrations and not say, "I'm not giving you any of my information"? That you're crazy. I'm asking him for information, so I get all his paperwork and his boss's name down there. Purely because I want to tell my son that, hey, go get a job there.
Sure.
You can start working for me, and they'll pay you.
And they'll pay you.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. So my wife postulated, she said, maybe they started having quotas. maybe the company paying, they're explicitly looking for convicts to go out and get voter registrations. But like I said, it's an odd group of people to go into the public and say, give me your most intimate information on this clipboard, because no offense to the guy, but I wouldn't have given him any information.
No, I mean, it's just, listen, it's 2024. There's so many ways to do it where you don't have to just give some dude all your information on a clipboard. Come on now. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Why don't give everybody your pitch? So people who are listening and they have a decision to make. They are in District 96. And in less than a week, a week, they're going to be voting. Make your pitch to them.
Yeah, so cannabis might be my single issue, but it also involves hemp. So I'm a hemp guy. That's the space I worked in, and I got to know a lot of good hemp farmers in Pennsylvania. And they were kind of sold a bag of goods. So I'm thinking, rather than say this is just about marijuana and arguing over whether or not it's good, why not make business of all this? Why not try to take Pennsylvania from worst to first and make the Keystone State known for being the cannabis state? Yeah. We already know it's a $5 billion business with marijuana. What's the potential with hemp? I hear guys talk tens of billions if you could get the textiles going and the animal feed going. And it's a nice crossover for people that want environmental issues done, because it's the most environmental friendly plant on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, we have a chance to set ourselves apart in a bunch of different ways when it comes to cannabis. Real quick, what do you think is going to go? Do you think there's any real reform coming to the Farm Bill?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I would like to at least see them go from 0.3. Let's get a better arbitrary number. At least go 1%. Because that would allow hemp farmers to not have to get fingerprinted by the FBI, and not all the stringent rules about making someone come out and watch you destroy your crop if it's hot. And it would allow these guys to get to work. Let them farm.
I just don't see how you can have a highly controlled market with the legal recreation and medicinal cannabis and then just allow this to be gone to anywhere.
Not to mention the thing we already have now. I mean, I've seen numbers that show that the hemp industry is bigger than the marijuana industry, and they're not talking about textiles and chicken feed. They're talking about hemp products with Delta-9 THC in them.
That's what
$27 million I've seen people float around in this country.
Yeah, and so that is, and when you go to the trade shows now, you see a predominant mix of these type of companies, and I've been going to these shows for years, and it never used to be like that. So clearly that's where the money is, because when you see the shows and you see where the money's coming from, that's where it's coming from. So, listen, I think there's a place for it. I think there's a place for that product, but you can't do it on the backs of people who have gone through all the process and all the work to get this done legally. Right. It's the same thing, it's the same thing like immigration. Like, there's people who come in legally, there's people who come in illegally. It just makes no sense to, favor the illegal route over the legal route. And so that's my thoughts on it. I think we need to decriminalize. I think we need to and just completely deregulate cannabis completely.
I think we need to throw the prohibition laws baby out with the bathwater. Kind of start fresh.
Yep.
Free market, in my opinion, is the most socially just and equitable solution, rather than politicians picking favorite where, well, we have this one person that they can cart out there and say, well, they got arrested and now they'll get the license, and that leaves a million other people left out in the cold.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to go to Harrisburg and just hand out a bunch of weed. Let them try it.
Man, you are full of just great ideas, man.
Hey, let's go. Let's buff up.
Well, we did talk about having a march to Harrisburg, didn't we?
I marched.
We did talk about that.
I actually marched with some guys to Harrisburg a couple months back in the campaign.
Here?
So their thing is they're called March on Harrisburg, and they start in Lancaster, and they walk to Harrisburg over a 3-day course. So they show up tattered and stinky, and they throw themselves in the legislature saying this is the bill that we want to pass. So
I'm not showing up stinky. I think we should be sitting in the back of a pickup truck doing our show the whole way up there, maybe going 5-10 miles an hour.
I like your idea better.
Yeah, because
I ain't gonna be stinky.
Yeah,
unless we smoking this stinky.
So all right, so we got to hang on for a second for Eric. We got a couple announcements to make. So We got a couple shows coming up, guys, that we want to tell you about. And the first is coming up this Thursday. We are having a Halloween edition show. What do you think about that? And you and I have costumes that we're going to be wearing, but we're not telling everybody what it is.
Keep that a secret.
Keep it a secret. Yeah, we're going to do a late night show on Thursday. Starts at 9. And it's going to be Halloween themed. There's not a lot of areas where cannabis crosses Halloween, but there's a few, and we're going to talk about it. We're also going to be taking a visit to a cannabis event. So we're going to be tapping into... Oh, see, this is our commercial right here. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, that's our commercial right there for Late Night Green, Halloween edition. It's on Thursday night, the 31st. We're going to do a remote. We have a remote coming in from a cannabis party in a dispensary, so we're going to check that out. We're going to have some guests here at the table with us, and so we're going to be talking about some Halloween shit. We're going to be, like, looking good and all that stuff.
Can't wait.
I can't wait either. And then on Tuesday, we're going to do some election coverage. So we'll take our last stab at the whole political thing. Maybe you and I can get into a fight or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I think you're going to go home.
He's looking for a fight.
Well, I'm trying to get you more points.
Like, hey.
I'm looking out for you, man.
There you go.
I'm looking out for you. Trying to get you points so you can get your dispensary.
That'll work.
Exactly. So, yeah, so guys, tune in on Thursday night for the Halloween show, and then we'll get you information on election night on what we're going to be doing. But we're going to be broadcasting live, and we'll have some guests in here, and we'll chop it up. Did you ever smoke during an election coverage show before?
I'm sure I have.
You have? You might have smoked during an election show, but you weren't on air when you did it.
No.
Yeah, so we're gonna tear it up this time.
Turn it up.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Eric, I want to thank you for coming in. Oh, and one more thing. I got on Thursday night. We're going to deal with Mike Huckabee.
Okay.
I'm done.
I'm waiting for that.
Look, I'm done with Mike fucking Huckabee. This guy with the whole President Trump Kids Guide to President Trump. We tried to order this book from Huckabee's company, and you pay $2 for shipping and handling. He never sent the book, but then you automatically get put on some subscription. Then they sent the books. I canceled subscription. They didn't give me my money back, and they sent all these other books, but except the one that they're supposed to send me.
Wow.
So, Trump needs to stop letting Huckabee use his likeliness on these books because they can't run a fucking company, man. It's ridiculous. But we'll deal with that on Thursday. And I got shit to show you guys too with the Better Business Bureau. This is a ripoff. We're going to take it out. But Harlem's still doing the reading. So we're still doing the child. He's going to read. Harlem's going to read the child story time for kids with the President Guide to President Trump. Yeah. So it's going to work out well. So anyway, I do want to thank you again for being here. We appreciate you making the trip out, and we wish you all the luck come next Tuesday. Sounds to me like you are well on your way to writing legislation next year. That we hope to have you back on so we can hear about which parts of the thing that you have taken on. And perhaps maybe you've taken it all on by then. We hope so. So
me too.
Yeah, me too. And him too. So thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to having you back again. Good luck on Tuesday. Todd, final words.
Hey, it's great to hear you and have you at the show tonight, Eric Beezer. But I like to call you EBs from now on.
All right.
You're too damn cool.
Right on. So, all right, guys. So tune in Thursday night for the Halloween edition, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Thank you, guys.